Hi everyone. For your last assignment, you're going to go down to submit your assignments again, and you'll find the information about the last assignment, which is your final essay, in the same tab format that we have had for all of the other assignments. So let's have a look and see what it says. So when we get to the final paper, you will find that you have, and I'll open this up a little bit. You'll have a description of what you're expected to do. The paper is worth 30%. And if you wish to discuss your paper with me in advance, you're more than welcome to do so. It's due June the 10th or earlier if you wish. So you'd need to talk to me ahead of time so that you and I have a chance to talk through some of your questions. The rubric tells us a lot about what you're going to be doing in this paper. And I should say, first of all, that you will be writing based on the topic that you choose. This topic could come out of something that you became particularly interested in as we went through the course, and you would like an opportunity to explore it further, write a paper about it so that you can analyze it and think it through in more depth. It could come out of your artifact video assignment where you talk about a particular issue as it's represented by an artifact. You begin to talk to the rest of your class about on your video about what that artifact signifies and what we know about gender relations and how we might approach it differently, or whatever you decide to include in your video. And then you may want to explore that further in a more shall we say academic way, where you can really get into some of the readings about it and that sort of thing and explore it more fully. So or you may decide to do something completely different. Now, I mean, there's a kind of time efficiency in terms of doing either of those that I've suggested already, but maybe something's come up and you really want to have an opportunity to approach it that a little more fully, and so you decide to go with a completely different topic. If you decide to do that, that's fine, but it will mean that your time will be a little more limited. Okay, so in our rubric, then and I'm going to pull this down a little bit further. There we go. Okay, so in this case, there's kind of blocks of marks. So anything between 27 and 30 would meet all of these criteria. Anything between 24 and 26 would meet all of these criteria, and so on. And sometimes it'll go across descriptors, and if that happens, then I'll have to take the mark and mediate it across those descriptors. So your paper is going to be about 8 to 10 double-spaced pages, not including your title page and references, of course. You can use references from the course, but you're expected to use at least 3 to 5 additional references, and I've never found anyone who had any problem with that, so I don't expect that you will either. And you'll be using the online tools to find those references through the University of Alberta library system so that you have an opportunity to see a broader range of literature that might be appropriate. Now, I'd like to just go through some of the things that would be expected, just to give you an idea of the kinds of things I'm going to be looking for. First of all, I'm going to be looking for a thought-provoking thesis. So you'll need to tell me in the paper, close to the beginning, you may want a little preamble or whatever, but close to the beginning, you need to tell me what you're going to be exploring in this paper. What's the thesis that you're going to try out in this paper by exploring the literature around that particular phenomenon or issue or whatever it happens to be that you're going to be approaching in this paper. You're going to clearly state what that thesis is so that anyone who's reading this paper, very soon after they start reading it, knows what you are about, what you're going to be exploring in the paper. Throughout the paper, I'm going to be looking for critical awareness. And what do I mean by that? I just mean that you're looking for the ways in which systems work in particular kinds of ways, or stereotypes work in particular kinds of ways to shape practices, and then you call them into question through readings that you're looking at, through thinking through the kinds of things that schools could be doing differently, examples of schools that are doing it differently, and that sort of thing. There will be an exemplary logical flow. So that means that your paper is going to be well organized. You might want to do that by developing points in relation to the thesis. Here are the main points and here are the subpoints. And that's a good way also to organize your paragraphs and your subparagraphs and so on. Your ideas are presented very thoughtfully. That means that you're using language that explicates your ideas very clearly, and that anyone reading them with a degree of intelligence is going to be able to figure out what it is that you're arguing in your paper or you're putting forward in your paper. Your language is precise. You use words that make sense in the context. They're clear. There's logical connections between the supporting literature and the central thesis of the paper. And that you've used headings and subheadings appropriately if you feel that that's something that you'd like to do. And I find it with this size of paper, it's about the size where headings and subheadings begin to make sense. We don't want to overuse them, but where they're going to provide good transitions or help the reader make transitions, I think they're useful. And of course, excellent grammar and composition, and your references and citations follow APA 7th edition precisely. So there will be various gradations of that throughout the rubric. So I would ask you then to go through this, to read it carefully, to think carefully about what your topic is going to be, and if you're having problems with that, or you're not sure that this is something that would make sense for you to pursue, or is something that's workable and doable within the time or within the space limitations that you have, then, please feel free to ask me about it. We can talk by phone or whatever, and we can talk through some of the possibilities. I think that's all that I probably need to say. Probably think of something as soon as I get off, but I think that says what the main things that you need to be thinking about. One thing I will say again is that, as I've said before, I'm not going to be terribly upset if it's 10.5 pages or it's 7.5 pages. What I'm really interested in is, do you say something significant, clearly, using conventions that help make sense of the ideas that you're communicating, and you tell the whole picture in terms of the thesis that you put forward. So of course that means it needs to be a workable thesis within an 8 to 10 page paper. So these are all the things that we can be thinking about when we write our papers. And if you hear any noise outside my window, it's the people that are banging their pots and thanking everybody for what they're doing for COVID-19, and I've missed it tonight, but that's okay, because I think this is important. If you have any questions at all, please let me know, and I'll be more than happy to talk to you about it, but this will get your thinking started about your final paper at least. Take care.